Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the sixth round of the Simsport Racing International GT3 Season 4 here from Brands Hatch, the penultimate round of the season. Welcome back. I hope you have all had a great Christmas and New Year's, and what better way to kick off the new year than a thrilling GT3 skirmish around one of the world's favourite circuits. From the geological oddity of Mount Panorama Bathurst to the rolling Kent countryside and the 3.916km 9-turn Grand Prix layout of Brands Hatch. Once the home of the British Grand Prix, the relatively short lap packs plenty of character and challenge for drivers regardless of how many laps you have tallied here. The downhill sweep of Paddock Hill Bend and the climb up Hellwood Hill to Druids always produces plenty of drama on the opening lap or any following lap. For that matter, with the GP loop in the Forest offering little margin for error. Factor in setting up your championship charge for 2 weeks' time in Monza and the temperature gets turned up just that little bit more. Well, to guide you through the action, I'm Tim Fulbrick, lead commentator. I'm delighted to be joined once again by Dave Hedges. Dave, Bathurst to Brands Hatch, it might seem like quite a leap from one extreme to the other, but really they both offer their own unique challenges.
They do. They're very significant. The different tracks in the way that they set out, but I think it's going to be a good race. Although I think the weather's going to be significantly different to what it was in Australia. We've got obviously the top three fairly close together in the championship, so I think it's going to be interesting to see how they get on.
Absolutely. Hello as well to everyone who's watching on the live stream on the Simsport Racing International YouTube channel. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Do let us know who you're cheering on in the race, your thoughts on the action taking place. And of course, if you do enjoy what you see taking place on your screen tonight, please hit the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel to keep up to date with all the sim racing action here. Well, before the Christmas break, it was Sam Spenkelink who took a dominant victory at Mount Panorama, with the McLaren driver dominating to score his second win of the season and become the only repeat winner of this championship so far. The leader, though, on the points, Rhys Spence-Robb, came home in second place, his third consecutive podium, sees the Odyssey Racing driver maintain his championship lead, although he's looking to bounce back to P1 at Brands this evening. Batis Marquez was the final driver on the podium, scoring his second rostrum of the season with another strong run in the McLaren. Well, yeah, like you say, Dave, looking at the screen there, it's very wet indeed out around this Brands Hatch circuit this evening, and if it's already difficult enough racing against a very strong grid of GT3 drivers, this just makes things that extra bit harder, doesn't it? 1:07.70, the quickest time set just a few moments ago. Then it's Clyde Bainey and Nard Cox, your top 3, with Kieran Vidago 4th, Danny de Swart rounding out your top 5 positions, actually on a tied time with Johan Planas, who's currently in P6. Then it's Dimitri de Gnooij in 7th, ahead of James Mead, Thomas Niebauer and Martin van der Kraan rounding out your top 10 positions. Now, Dave, with the wet, it certainly shakes things up, doesn't it, in terms of your qualifying, because you might choose to maybe take things a little bit differently in terms of strategy. You might not want to run the low fuel and maybe use up a set of tyres. Do you tackle these sessions by just loading the car up with fuel, strap on a set of wets and head out and see what comes your way?
I think so. It takes, especially now with the 1.8 update, it takes a little bit longer for the tyres to get up to temperature. And we got sort of 20 minutes qualifying. I would literally just brim it as much as I need for the session and just go out. So you don't really see that much drop off with the wet tyres. And you can see in terms of Sem's lap times, he's about 10 seconds roughly slower than his dry time. So yeah, that's pretty good. It shows the track isn't really wet at the moment, but I think if you start seeing lap times in the 40s, then we're going to see that track is really wet.
Yeah, absolutely, and the rain is expected to continue throughout the remainder of this qualifying session. We are nearing the halfway point. Plenty of cars out on track at the moment, so space is always at a premium at Brands Hatch, let alone in qualifying sessions when you're trying to find that little bit of extra room just to set your time. Factor in the spray as well that's being kicked up by the cars and find your visibility slightly lacking, and you look for an apex and you find nothing but a wall of mist as James Mead crosses the line. He jumps from P8 up to P2, a 1:34.047 sees the Odyssey Racing Aston Martin leapfrog his way up to the front row of the grid at its stands, as we see Xander Vale just going off into the gravel there on the run up the hill into the Sheen curve. Plenty of corner names here at Brands Hatch. It's an old school circuit, to say the least. The walls are close, the grass is even closer, and you can find that the competition is closer still round this very short circuit. Only 9 turns, but each corner presenting its own challenge. Mattis Marquez then, podium finisher from last time out at Bathurst, heading out around Hawthorns and into this GP loop section here, into the right-hander at Westfield. Then the track plunges away down the hill through what's known as Dingle Dell before it climbs up into the Sheen. It's a blind apex here. You just turn in and hope the corner is where it was on your previous lap. No real room for error on the exit as well. There's no exit curbing. It's straight grass, and if you touch that with the car loaded up, you can find yourself spinning in either direction with a one-way trip to the barrier. And then down this flat-out section under the bridge through Clearways and Clark, trying to keep the car over to the right-hand side for the shortest run to the line. Marquez is going to cross the line. Will he improve on P20 where he is at the moment? Yes, he jumps up 14 places into P6, so finds himself on the 3rd row of the grid as we head into the final 8.5 minutes. But David, look, Danny de Swart sliding off into Paddock Hill Bend. Even if you are towards that top part of the grid, it's certainly worth pushing for that little bit extra. Currently, top 10 separated by a little over a second.
Yeah, he just didn't have any grip on turning there. He's just probably going a little bit fast on entry, maybe locked up a little bit, and that's it, off into the gravel. But thankfully the cars don't get stuck in the gravel on ACC too much, so he can carry on. But yeah, it's full beans and maximum, just trying to make sure you get every apex right, not getting on the curbs too much, not getting on the grass, and trying to stay out the spray as well, out of people's way.
Absolutely. I was going to say, the rain modelling on ACC is fairly, it's pretty advanced, isn't it? So how is Brands Hatch in terms of dealing with those puddles and rivers, and like you say, the curbs here, are they particularly slippy, even more so in the wet, and particularly with how much rain we've got this evening?
Yeah, the curbs are always really tricky on this sim. You really want to stay away from them as much as possible in this level of wetness. But the track's not too bad in terms of puddles. Things like Radion and at Spa, you get a little bit of a river across the track up the top of the hill. So you don't really get that on Brands.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. It's got reasonable grip level as well.
Excellent stuff. Hopefully we'll see the drivers extracting every last ounce of that grip indeed. As we see Benjamin Simmers crosses the line, he jumps up the order up to P13. So there are drivers still improving, still finding grip and still finding pace with 6.5 minutes to go. But we've seen plenty of times the yellow flags go out and come back in again as drivers make mistakes. And all there, Mattis Marquette round Graham Hill Bend, and on the exit he finds a parked McLaren. I think that was Nard Cox waiting on the exit of the turn, already facing the wrong way, adjacent to the racing line, and a T-bone collision there sees both drivers head back to pit lane. And with time running out, and with, as Dave mentions there, the issues with getting the tyres up to temperature as quick as you're able to do pre this most recent update to ACC, time is of a premium. 6 minutes to go. It's a 90-second lap here, so you have got time to get out and get round, but you might not find the car is in the optimum working window for when you need to put a lap in. Sem Spenkelink, though, heading out through Dingledale and up the hill towards the Sheen curve, turns in the number 1 Dark Sky Racing McLaren. He's got championship positions to be gained. He needs to be outscoring Reece Spence-Robb to see himself going into this final round at Monza with an even better chance of snatching the championship lead right at the death. Into the final corner at Clark, gets the car in nicely and plants the throttle with no real signs of any uncomfortability in that car. Heading towards the line, where does the McLaren go? He's P1 at the moment, but he improves. A 1:33.497 from Sem Spenkelink sees him extend his margin at the top of the timesheets. Mike Abrenhoser, though, in the number 21, coming towards the line. He's currently P16. Does he improve? Yes! Leapfrogs 10 positions. Up to P6 for Abrenhoser. There's plenty of McLarens in the top 10. Abrenhoser putting in a stellar performance there. His best qualifying coming at Bathurst last time out, P7. So he looks to have found form in these short, sharp 20-minute qualifying sessions. Fantastic stuff indeed from Abrenhoser. And Dave, at a circuit like Brands Hatch, like we said, with overtaking opportunities fairly limited, you do have to push the door open for yourself. Being towards that front end of the grid's going to be helpful when the race starts. You do, yeah. There's probably 2 or 3 opportunities around the lap, but you've got to be very close to the people in front of you, and it's going to be so difficult with the amount of spray. But you can set the drivers up to an overtake up into Druids. You've really got to set it up on Clark Curve and get them out of line, get them up into Paddock Hill, again offline, so you get a good run up into Druids. But it's going to be really difficult in these conditions. Absolutely. Coming to the line then, Dave Jr. He started the season so well at Laguna Seca, 3rd on the grid, 2nd place finish. He's found himself struggling since then, 24th on the grid as it stands. Certainly plenty more performance in that Artworks team Lamborghini, but he could be struggling in these wet conditions, and I wouldn't be surprised. It is absolutely torrential out there at the moment. I've been at Brands Hatch in the real world, but it feels like this sideways rain is often what you're experiencing, as a number of these cars are still finding pace, still finding grip. Damien De Keyser in P21 at the moment in the number 15 Pulse Motorsport Lexus, best time of a 1:35. He's 1.86 seconds off pole, but if he found 2-3 tenths, he could see himself up towards the top 15. Heads up the hill towards the Sheen curve. A little dab of the brakes even mid-corner there. Shows you just how difficult these conditions are. Into the banked left-hander of Sterling's as we ride on board over the crest, under the bridge, through Clearways and towards Clark Curve, the final corner. So easy to just throw away all that time you've gained on the rest of the lap through this final turn as the track drops away from you. Flat out to the line then. He's going to cross the timing line. Does he improve? Yes, P21. He jumps up to P18, so an improvement of 3 or 4 places there from Damien. A strong lap in the closing moments. 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock. Sem Spenkelink still holds on to pole position. A 1:33.497 is the target for this man on screen. Danny de Swart in the CBSR Racing number 57 Mercedes. He comes down the hill into the final corner at Clark Curve. He's got 0.290 of a second to find to match Sem Spenkelink's time. Anything more than that and he will be the man starting on pole position. Crosses the line. Doesn't improve. He lost time on that lap, so he'll need to go again. Fortunately, he's got just enough time as he's sliding round Paddock Hill Bend. We just cut away before the car did a full loop as Tim Niebauer now through the Dingle Dell and up into Sheen Curve. And really, this GP loop, Dave, it's such a challenge, isn't it? You know, modern circuits, they have these nice exit curbs, plenty of runoff, but the GP loop section here at Brands Hatch, you're met with grass and a barrier more often than you're met with a nice escape from any sort of drama.
Yeah, it's quite surprising because the curbs are quite wide. In the dry, you are leaning on the curbs and on the bits of sort of concrete that got grass growing through it. But it's in the wet, it's a completely different beast. You don't really want to be going anywhere near that grass section. Just keep it tighter, keep it slightly offline. You know, take the wet line, get to find that where the grip is and see where the rubber is down, which is pretty good on ACC. You can find the grip elsewhere on the track, not just the racing line.
And the wet tyres, are they good enough for multiple flying laps, or are you really exhausting them after one or two push laps? Because we've seen with the new slick tyres as well that those can have the life taken out of them fairly sharpish if you're quite mean to them.
If you can stop the slip, so not being too aggressive, then you should be okay with the tyres for the 20 minutes. In fact, the whole race you should be okay. There's no need to be changing tyres in the pit stops, so that's going to be interesting in a race. Personally, I'd probably be taking next to no fuel and no tyres for my pit stop and get it as short as possible.
Absolutely. Well, let's see how the strategy plays out. 15 seconds on the clock. We've got an Audi in the barrier there at Paddock Hill Bend, sliding off into the wall. I think that could have been that was the number 3 car of Ronnie Jezerif down in P19. He won't be improving on that position as the clock strikes 0. The qualifying session has finished. Drivers, though, still out there on track and are still able to set a lap time and improve their position if they can manage to pull a lap together. Mattis Marquez, P14 at the moment in the number 20, the bright white McLaren. You can certainly see that through the spray as he heads up through the Sheen Curve. Bit of a slide on, finds himself in the middle of the road as he comes towards the left-hander at Sterling's, gets the car in nicely, but again on the exit, a bit of a tail-happy moment, finds himself gathering the car as he comes towards Clark Curve into the final right-hand of the track. Drops away from you just as you start applying the throttle, and in these wet conditions you can find yourself slip sliding all the way out to the grass and the gravel. He crosses the line, P14, and he will stay there as he collects the checkered flag. Here is your order then from qualifying. A couple of drivers still to finish their times, but it doesn't look like there are any major improvements happening out on track as another car just out of shot takes the checkered flag. It looks like Sem Spenkelink will hold on to pole position, a 1:34.497, the fastest time of the session. It'd be Danny de Swart second place. But Dave, interestingly enough, as we saw on screen there, Sem Spenkelink only fastest in that middle sector. The Mercedes, Danny de Swart, purple in sector 1 and 3. So 2 very equally matched cars in the wet conditions.
Yeah, it does level out the cars, that's for sure, on the drivers in the wet. It's just you're trying to be as consistent as possible, not allowing the car to slip, getting on the power without having the traction control coming on too much, the ABS cutting in. It's all very, very key. Hopefully the first 3 corners here are always tricky in the dry. In the wet it's going to be even more difficult, so hopefully everyone will behave themselves and just be careful.
Absolutely. Well, let's speak to one of the drivers that will be tackling this race start. It's Chris Hill. Chris, how was your qualifying session? It was very wet. You ended up in P23, I believe. So work to do in this race, but the conditions might work out for you if there's drama ahead.
You might be surprised to hear that, but I'm really pleased to end up in that position. Obviously, it'd be nice to be higher up, but considering it's a full wet session, I'm not very good in the wet, as you may have already seen. But yeah, I'm really pleased and looking forward to the race.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to seeing how you tackle it from P23. I mean, you gained plenty of positions last time out at Bathurst, P30 to P21. Do you fancy going 9 places further forward this evening?
I do, but let's see what happens. It's very, very easy to just clip the curb in the wet and you're off, and I won't say your race is ruined, but the more times you do that, the less chance you've got of improving any time. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I'd just like to say good luck to all the drivers in this.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll all be wishing each other luck.
If I hit anybody, it's not on purpose.
Make sure you got your glasses on, Chris.
And your windscreen wipers.
I knew something I was missing.
Thank you very much, Chris. Best of luck.
Thank you.
And as well, joining us, Simon Pike. Simon, P11 on the grid. Things looking P12. That's a nice place to be, but you're right in the thick of the drama from there, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not going to see a right lot, so you'll have to tell me which way to go, I think.
First corner goes right, I think, so that's if that's of any help. But a strong qualifying session from you. Both Chris and yourself seem to have found pace towards this second half of the season. That's your best qualifying session so far, so something must be working.
Yeah, I had a good lap at the end of the stint. I was on light fuel and managed to get it all stuck together. Hopefully we can carry it on through the race.
Fingers crossed indeed, Simon.
Yeah.
Best of luck, Simon, mate.
Thank you very much.
Concentrating even in the pre-race moments, Dave, as well. So let's take you for a run through the order. It's Sam Spankling on pole position. He's joined on the front row by Danny de Swart in the number 57 CBSR Racing Mercedes. Then it's Kieran Vidago up in P3, a very strong qualifying position from the Ferrari driver. That's his best qualifying since he took pole position at Zandvoort. He'll be very pleased with that indeed. Nard Cox joins him on the second row with James Mead, Klaas Vester rounding out the top 6. Jitse Medema and Dimitri Ducnoy in P8 with Clyde Bainey and Tom Sneebauer rounding out your top 10. It's Mike Abrenhoser and Simon Pike with Martin van der Kraan, Mattis Marquez, Johan Planas and Tim Kroll rounding out your top 16. Benjamin Simmers in 17th ahead of Damien de Keyser. Dennis Workman and Ronnie Jezeri rounds out your top 20 positions with Nelson Abrenhoser, Patrick Treffers, Chris Hill and Dave Jr. Your top 24 positions, your first 12 rows off the grid. As you can see from the track map on the right-hand side, as the leaders make their way around Surtees and start looking towards the back stretch towards Pilgrim's Drop and up towards Hawthorns. The rest of the field are only just exiting Druids. And David, track space here is at a premium. When you're racing, of course, in this opening lap, you find yourself side by side for a lot more corners than maybe you would like. But sometimes it's maybe just about giving as much as it's about taking.
Yeah, I think it's just try and get clean, get away. First couple of laps, just settle into your rhythm. Don't push too much, because if you do, you could potentially be off the track and into a barrier. It's not going to be an easy off if you do have one in the first couple of laps.
Absolutely, and with this race here at Brands Hatch, the penultimate round of the season, drivers will be looking to set up their championship challenges in Monza. You don't want to have a no score to your name at this point in the season, so close to the end. And with Rhys Spence-Robb, I don't believe he's taking part tonight. So Sam Spankling is in prime position to bag a maximum score and close the gap, which is currently 20 points. And with 50 points for a race win, we could see the championship lead change this evening. 1 hour on the clock then. Drivers will need to make one pit stop throughout this race. As you can see on the left-hand side, next to the driver's name, the number 1 in an orange box indicates that they need to make their stop. That goes green once they've made their mandatory visit to pit lane. The grid forms then as we round Clark Curve as drivers get into the 2x2 formation. It certainly would be handy to be in Noah's Ark this evening with the amount of rain falling on the Brands Hatch circuit. 1 hour on the clock. We'll go racing. Let's see how many can make it to the checkered flag in 60 minutes' time. Sam Spankling on the inside, Danny de Swart on the outside, be looking to get the jump on the run to Paddock Hill Bend and up towards Druids. They get ready to take the green flag, and we're racing here at Brands Hatch. It's a fantastic start from Spankling. He gets the whole shot as they head into Paddock Hill, but Danny de Swart braving it around the outside, trying to go the long way round as they dip down and then climb up Hailwood Hill. There's drama in the background, spun cars on the racing line, but 2 off in the gravel, and it potentially hitting the barriers and their race over as Sam Spankling still challenged by de Swart, who goes around the outside of Druids, which becomes the inside into Graham Hill Bend, but he understeers slightly wide. Spankling gets the cut back then as we run up towards Surtees, the left-hander. Spankling's got the high ground, but Danny de Swart's managed to go around the outside of 2 corners so far. Unfortunately, he has to cede the position as Kieran Vidago smells blood, looks for a way up the inside, but can't get the job done. 1, 2, 3, all nose to tail as they dip down Pilgrim's Drop and all climb towards Hawthorne. Spenkelink holds on to the lead now, but it's only by a nose ahead of Danny de Swart and Kieran Vidago. The top three together, then it's 2, 3, 4 car lengths back to Nard Cox and James Mead into Westfield for the first time and round the GP loop. A slight mistake there from Vidago, looks slightly unsettled on the run into the corner. That's cost him momentum. Cox is closing in on him as Spenkelink looks to have found form in those two right-handers and has really started to stretch away some sort of lead from the number 57 Mercedes. But it's been a clean start at the front. It looks to be another car off into the barrier at the Sheen curve. Wondering whether that could be Simon Pike. We'll get a confirmation as they cross the line and trigger the timing beacon, and we see the positions adjust on the left-hand side of the screen. But one lap complete, Sem Spenkelink leads the way. Danny de Swart second ahead of Kieran Vidago, Nard Cox and James Mead, with Klaas Vester and Mike Abrenhoser your top 7. Tim Niebauer in 8th ahead of Clyde Bainey. Martin van der Kraan and Mattis Marquez your top 11. As Mead looks for a way past, a mistake from Nard Cox has seen the door open. Mead up to P4, and I get the feeling that was Simon Pike who was off in the barrier, and unfortunately he's in pit lane, so it would look, all the evidence is stacking up that Simon made a mistake at Sheen Curve or found himself involved with another driver. But for Sem Spenkelink, Dave, that was the perfect start, but Danny de Swart, boy, he gave it a good go at making a pass for the lead.
Yeah, he really did. It was very respectful, side by side. It was really good driving, cutbacks. You can also see how early they are getting out of the spray along the back straight there. It's amazing to see that it's so early on that they're trying to just pick their braking points and make sure that they don't lose position and lose sight of each other.
Absolutely, visibility is going to be an issue with so many cars together on track. James Mead climbing a position up to P4. Here is a replay then of what happened to Simon Pike on the right hand side there. I believe that's Clyde Bainey's McLaren, and it's just the slightest of touches in the braking zone on the run up to Sheen, and Simon drifts across the grass and into the wall. Very difficult one. That visibility obviously at a premium, like we've said. Just running slightly wide, and a little hip check as the two ran into the Sheen curve. A really unfortunate instant for Simon, who started in P12, now down the order after the pit stop. And it looks like he might have stopped out on track at Surtees again. There is a yellow flag. He gets going though, so it seems to have gone from bad to worse, unfortunately. Chris Hill, another one of our drivers in the race radio, up to P19. So he's gained a couple of spots on the opening 2 laps. Spenkelink sets the pace though. He's 1.1 seconds ahead of Danny de Swart, and then it's this battle pack: Kieran Vidago, James Mead and Nard Cox locked together. 56 and a quarter minutes to go. Plenty of time to make a move, but also plenty of time to make a mistake, and we can certainly see how Brands Hatch can be quite hard in these wet conditions. Weather forecast 30 minutes time. We're still seeing heavy rain, and so we're not expecting track conditions to improve, but we certainly saw things change around at Zandvoort when the race started to dry up very quickly indeed. So let's hold out hope that maybe we get some clearer weather towards the second half of the race. But at the moment it looks like the rain is pretty set in, as Mattis Marquez runs slightly wide at Westfield, costing him speed and costing him a position as Ronnie Jezerif goes up the inside in the number 3 Audi. And Marquez, podium finisher at Bathurst, looks to be struggling a bit on this third lap of the race, with the Ferrari of Benjamin Simmers closing in quickly and looking for a way past through Stirlings and towards Clearways, and into the Clark curve they go. Dave, one of these issues we saw it at Bathurst, something that the race leaders had to manage, is traffic. And already on the track map on the right hand side of the screen, we're seeing how this field can start spreading out, and how the leaders really will be catching traffic a lot quicker than they expect.
There is. It looks like it's pretty close in terms of up to maybe the first 20 cars. We've obviously the ones that made incidents still sort of feeding around the track, but yeah, it won't be long before the leaders catch up, and it's really difficult to find a place that's safe to pass around here. You got to trust the back markers are going to get out of your way suitably, but it can turn on you pretty quickly if they don't.
Oh, there's been a spin. Martin van der Kraan facing the wrong way in the 253 2K Racing Ferrari. I think he suffered a hit as well as the traffic tried to make their way through, but he returns to the action on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. Unfortunately for him, he has tumbled down the order as the drama continues to kick off. Matas Marquez here in the number 20 McLaren, I believe, has also lost a few positions. So I wonder whether the two of them were involved, as behind he's being chased hard by the Aston Martin of Van der Mart. As in the background there, the Ferrari of Jitse Medina runs wide at Hawthorns and runs through the gravel. Drivers definitely struggling to come to terms with the conditions and also with being together on track. Marquez losing another spot, potentially carrying damage if he's been involved with a couple of knocks with other cars. But all of the corners and panels on this McLaren 720S look to be in shape. So I wonder if he's just struggling to come to terms with the track underneath him. As Ronnie Jezerif up to P10, he started down in P20, so he's gained a whole heap of spots in this opening 8 minutes of the race, as he then looks now to pressure class Vesta for P9. His best finish so far this season from Jezerif was P17 at Laguna Seca, so at the moment he's on to absolutely smash his PB from this season, but 53 minutes to go, a long way from the checkered flag. Now, Dave, with your comment about the tyres lasting, like you say that if you treat them well, the tyre life in these wet tyres should be good enough for the hour. Is there any chance of drivers potentially throwing a curveball, trying to pit early and get out of the traffic, or really do you need to wait, to the midway point to start evaluating when's the best time to pit?
I think if your strategy isn't to take tyres or fuel other than the mandatory amount, then I don't really think it matters too much. Unless if you're being held up by other cars, then it might make sense to take an early stop. If you're always going to take tyres.
Sorry, Dave. Just quickly, James Mead spinning out from P4. He now drops behind Nard Cox, I believe Clyde Bainey as well, so he's dropped back to P6. The Aston Martin number 29 was looking very quick in the opening couple of laps, but that's cost him plenty of time. The green Nissan behind is the lapped car of Patrick Treffers, I believe, but lost a position there to Clyde Bainey. He manages to sneak through to take P5. Carry on, Dave.
Yeah, no, I wonder if he had to get a bit too close with Kieran there, because obviously he was quite close behind him, wasn't he, for the first few laps. So it might just be one of those incidents where you're very difficult to pick braking points and just send yourself off into the grass. But I think the tyres will be fine. If the guys and girls have decided to do a split strategy, then I don't think it will make too much difference. But obviously, if you have to take fuel at your pit stop, then you will then end up running a lot heavier. But I think those at the front will be running full race fuel, ready for the shorter pit stops. You just take 1 or 2 seconds in the pit stop rather than the 18 or 19 seconds or 30 if you take tyres.
Absolutely, and pit stops though will be lengthened if you've got any damage, and if you choose to have that damage repaired. As Evan Tafas facing the wrong way at Graham Hill Bend, this seems to be quite the hot point for some action so far this evening. We've seen a few cars facing the wrong direction on the exit of the left hand, a turn 3 on your track map. But yes, Graham Hill Bend, as you come down from Druids, you wouldn't expect it to be too much of a difficult corner. It's pretty much a 90-degree left, but it's like curve in the braking zone as well. It's easy just to clip the grass, as running wide there in front of Nelson Abranhosa was the Lamborghini of Tim Kroll. Kroll getting a bit of a wiggle on the exit of Sterling's and allowing the number 33 green Aston Martin through, and to take P14 on the road. As then it's Chris Hill tucked in behind, then Martin van der Kraan on your screen here in the 253, another car that we've seen facing the wrong way at Graham Hill Bend. But it is Sem Spenkelink who continues to lead the way at the top of the order, and this is towards the end of the tail, but the battle's just as furious. Here is our race leader, the Dark Sky Racing McLaren. He's got 3.7 seconds now on Danny de Swart, so he's continuing to just open that gap at the front and put some safety margin between himself and the Mercedes driver. Then it's Kieran Vidago in P3, a few tenths ahead of Nard Cox, 1.6 seconds actually in front of the number 35 McLaren. Then Clyde Bainey P5 in the 85 car. So that's 3 McLarens inside the top 5, 4 inside the top 7. We've certainly seen these 720Ss be very strong this season, and certainly in the hands of Sem Spenkelink and Nard Cox, they've proven just how quick they can be. But Clyde Bainey as well, showing pretty strong pace throughout the course of the season so far. Of course, the highlight being that race win at Donington Park, where him and teammate Rhys Spencer-Robb dominated. And there's a bit of a switch at the end though with team orders, but with Rhys not racing tonight, Clyde Bainey is on his own, fighting his own corner. We're hoping to take some strong points, and really Rhys will be hoping that Clyde could get in amongst the leaders and championship challengers like Sem Spenkelink and cost them some points, take points away from them. But at the moment, Spenkelink leading the way comfortably, and Clyde Bainey over 10 seconds behind. Nelson Abramhoser on screen in the 33, getting very sideways on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. Caught that up, he would have been crossed up in the cockpit as we actually do go on board here. And Dave, you could just see the visibility, or lack of it, thereof. It's so difficult to start aiming for apexes. You can't see where you're going.
You can't, and the view there just shows you how much spray there is in these conditions. We see it a lot on the Formula One, the rooster tails, and how impossible it is to see any cars. Graham Hill Bend is just slightly off camber on the entry as well, so it makes it so easy to turn the rear end around, and that's why I think we're seeing a lot of spinning on that corner.
Absolutely, a huge spit of flame from Nelson Abramhoser's Aston Martin as he heads in towards Hawthorns. Here is Simon Pike on screen. Now, he's a bit of a way down the order, out of the action at the moment, but if he continues to lap cleanly, he could find his way fighting back into things. I'm going to try and talk to Simon as he heads down the hill towards Graham Hill Bend. We'll catch him on the exit of this corner in the 2 straights of the Cooper Straight, and then the long straight up in towards the GP loop. Simon, your race unfortunately seemed to unravel in that first lap. A bit of contact, and now you're fighting your way back into things from P24.
Yeah, and I was overdriving after my pit stop, so had a couple of spins to boot. Not gone to plan, but plenty of time left yet.
Absolutely, best of luck, Simon.
Thank you.
Pushing on his merry way, and certainly, Dave, with the races, with an hour, mandatory stop. Okay, yes, maybe find yourself in some drama at the start, but it's almost a time trial to some extent, isn't it? You've got to be the quickest from green flag to checkered flag, make the least amount of mistakes, and just lap as consistently and as quickly as you can, and find yourself in that clean air early on can sometimes be a blessing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in P7, Abramhoser, it looks like he's a bit of a cork in the bottle at the minute. I'd be considering, as you said, a little bit of an early stop, as someone's off in...
Oh, I think that could be Sem Spenkelink, the number 1 on the track map, the yellow flag on the exit of the Sheen curve. That would be drama, to say the least. And there it is, Sem Spenkelink, race leader. The McLaren 720S spins back round and faces the correct way. Dark Sky Racing's championship contender has had his race come to blows here on the Exeter Sheen curve, round the Clark curve. Does he come to pit lane immediately? No, he's going to live with the damage that he's got. It certainly looks to have sustained some sort of knock to the front end of his McLaren. Strange that from Sem, a rare mistake from him. He had a multiple second lead at the top of the order, but a spin on the exit of the right-hander, and now he finds himself down in P6 and with plenty of work to do. Danny de Swart then takes up the baton as race leader. The number 57 Mercedes has nearly 2 seconds over Kieran Vidago, who in turn has 1.7 back to Nard Cox. Then there's a 4-second gap to Clyde Bainey, who's got James Mead for company 1.5 seconds down the road. But Dave, we talked about the margins here at Brands Hatch and how fine they are. That could be race deciding for Sem. He's going to have to fight his way back into the race, and he's got to really perform well considering how quick these top 4-5 drivers are.
Yeah, you've got to hope that the 5 cars in front have the same sort of incident that he has, and that's the only opportunity really that he's probably going to have now, unless he gets into the pits, puts some stonking laps in, so when he gets back out in front of the guys. I mean, he's got about 7 or 8 seconds maybe that he's down. That's going to be a tall order for him to do.
Absolutely. Strategy could be the saving grace for the current second place man in the championship standings. Remember, he's 20 points off Reece Spence Rob. He'll be looking to try and take home as many as possible and go into Monza with as big a margin as possible. But currently, if he finishes down in P6 where he is at the moment, that would hand him 25 points. So we'd see a 5-point gap going into this final race of the season. So certainly would be adding spice into the mix. Tim Kroll on screen then, P13. He's still battling away with Damien De Keyser, and behind he's got Nelson Abraham Hoser's Aston Martin for company, and very close company, as they rattle through Paddock Hill Bend and slip and slide their way down and then up towards Druids into the right-hander. The Lamborghini holding on to its spot for now, and in fact through the hairpin at the top of the hill and down towards Graham Hill Bend, he looks to be going on the offensive against the number 15 Lexus of De Keyser. Down the Cooper Straight and towards Surtees. Certainly is a bit of a look to the inside, but the door is held shut by De Keyser as they go through the left, climb up over the hill, apply 100% throttle for the longest time on the track, down Pilgrim's Drop, and then the track flattens out, if not climbs slightly towards Hawthorns. The far right hand is so easy to just overestimate how much speed you can carry in and find yourself drifting off into the grass and the barrier on exit, or even worse, spinning to the inside and taking a very heavy hit into the barrier on the right there, as they then go through Dingle and up into the Sheen curve, where we've seen a couple of incidents and maybe some more there. Benjamin Simmers running through the grass, but I think that could have been Martin van der Kraan in the number 253 going even further wide and having to hop, skip and jump through the gravel to get back on track. Fingers crossed for Martin, he hasn't sustained any further damage. Unfortunately, his race has taken a couple of knocks already this evening. We're 18 minutes in. Current race leader is Danny de Swart. He's inherited the lead after Sem Spenkelink's race, potentially race-defining incident at the Sheen curve as Ronnie Jeserif catches a slide. And behind, that is Damien De Keyser spinning on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. He's slow to get going as well, the climb up the hills. Another car off. There's an Aston Martin waiting, and Tim Kroll is facing the wrong way as well. So those trio of drivers battling for position seem to self-imploded here in the turns through Paddock Hill and up towards Druids. There must have been contact. Nelson Abraham waits up for Tim Kroll as per the rule book to let the Lamborghini driver retake the position, but that are all the hallmarks of a knock one too many for the three drivers involved there. Now here is our previous race leader, Sem Spenkelink. He was the fastest man out on track. He certainly looks to be doing his best to close the gap. He's taken 7/10, I think, out of James Mead in the last 2 or 3 laps of the Brands Hatch circuit. Down to 4 seconds now is the gap, which can so easily be taken away by a mistake. You've certainly got to hang everything out. And Dave, again, Sem's going to be forced to push, and in these conditions at this track, you really don't want to be playing with the margins even more so.
I don't think so. He's just got to settle down and just keep it nice and clean. If he's going to try and get in early, then obviously he will need to push. Probably when he comes back out. It depends on where if you're looking at the track map there, I find it difficult to find any space that he may be able to come back out in. So he's probably just going to have to keep going until the end, when he probably was going to stop maybe the last lap again, and just hope everyone else has a mistake.
And it's difficult, driving is, of course, so much a physical challenge. We've spoken to drivers post-race this season in both GT3s and GT4s as we see Johan Planas head down pit lane about how hard they're pushing and the toll it takes on them physically, particularly in very draining races where you're giving it absolutely everything over the course of the hour and qualifying as well. But it's just as much a mental game, isn't it, Dave? And making a mistake like that quite early on in the race, it takes a lot to bounce back and get back into that rhythm. But it's so crucial, isn't it?
It is very crucial, and when you've got wet conditions, you're constantly making micro adjustments to your steering angles as your car's moving around under you. It's a lot different in the dry. These cars have got amazing amounts of grip, So yeah, it's really draining this race, even in the dry, and as we see Evan off in the grass again.
Absolutely, another spinner this time on the exit of Druids. The run down then towards Graham Hill Bend. A spin for Evan Natafas, currently running 23rd now, actually, yet to make a stop. Another position then goes the way of Simon Pike, so that's another one tallied off. He's up to P22 and is currently running 4th place if you consider our pit stoppers a slightly separate class, as the order will ebb and flow with the mandatory visits to pit lane. One final thing though, Dave, on the mental game of sim racing. When you make an error, how do you fare? You a driver that gets easily flustered by mistakes. Do you find yourself getting in that rut? I personally do. It's so difficult to bounce back, or do you think you're quite good at putting it aside and pressing on?
Yeah, I'm fairly level-headed. With incidents, I'll scream at the screen for about 20 seconds, and then I'll
get
just
it all out
back down and get back in the zone, because it doesn't help. I've raced with people in endurance races in my team who get very hot-headed, and their driving just goes to pot, and you just you learn from their mistakes in some ways as well, and just keep it level-headed. Make sure you do everything right, and otherwise you're just going to end up getting slower.
Yeah, definitely. And like we say, these 1 hour races, as much as it's a battle against the competition, it's about a time trial, isn't it? Covering as much distance as you can in that hour, and getting flustered, making these mistakes, and that compounds onto itself, and you just find yourself losing more and more time. You've got to put it behind you and press on and minimise the time lost. Danny de Swart, though, he is being chased down hard now by Kieran Vidago for the race lead. The gap has come down to 1.5 seconds between the leading two as we head on board with Vidago in the number 4 SSRi Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo over the crest, and then he'll plunge down through Pilgrim's Drop and towards Hawthorne's Bend. There's spray ahead. One of those, in amongst the gloom and the mist, is the number 57 Mercedes of Danny de Swart. The other car is a lapped car, I believe, running behind fairly far down the order in 24th place. So the leaders are already starting to catch the cars in the low 20s. The number 74, that's Evan Natafas, will be the next car to go a lap down, as Benjamin Simmers off in the grass at Surtees, the driver who was P11, now down to P14. He's going to be caught. That's Chris Hill closing up behind. As up ahead, I think that's Evan Natafas off again, but that's going to allow safe passage for both Danny de Swart and Kieran Vidago through. He's now going to be receiving the blue flags for Nard Cox, who finds himself on the podium. And once again, the teammate game. Nard's job here is to take as many points away from the competition and hope that he can see his teammate climb up the order and claim points in the fight for the championship. Vidago, though, is looking vastly improved and looking to have found pace as we head towards the halfway point of this race at Brands Hatch. Currently in second, 1.5 seconds the gap to Danny de Swart. He's taken a 10th out of it on this lap, so another little chip away at the race lead. There's Simmers spinning around at Surtees. Looked like the flash of the white McLaren of Matas Marquez passing through the back of shot as well. So wonder if there's been contact between the two cars on the run into the long left-hander. But now Kieran Vidago's job is to chase down the race leader. It's hovering around that 1.5 second mark. He will, of course, be well within range to be getting that spray, just starting to inhibit his vision, which also will see him almost impacts you like dirty air to some extent. It's just another thing to focus on, another obstacle to overcome, as Dimitri de Knoit sends one up the inside of Dave Jr. on the run up the hill towards Druids, the right-hander. He gets the job done in the 114 Bentley, and after having made his pit stop already up to P19, he's looking in fairly strong position to benefit once the other pit stops start coming in. As still got a large number, top 17 cars are yet to pit. Then it's Jitse Medema in P18, the number 36 Ferrari is our leading pit stopper, as one of our Nissans, Evan Natafas, heads to pit lane in the Wild Things Racing number 74 car. He could come out amongst a whole heap of traffic, but we'll see how things play out as Kieran Vidago's potentially lost a bit of time there in traffic, having to get past one of the Ferraris. Looks like the gap, it was down to a second across the line. Actually, it looks to have remained fairly low as well. Closing the gap then is Vidago as the leaders make their way through traffic. They now have got a few seconds up the road, and then it's the number 13 of Simon Pike is the next car to be lapped. And crikey, on the run up towards Hawthorns there, Vidago looked to have two wheels over the white line, but everything in fine working order as he continues to rattle through the GP loop. Now Vidago, Dave, he's going to have a difficult time of things here because he is closing up. It does look like he's got the pace advantage, but going for a move is going to be tricky, and he'll need to make it count in these conditions.
Yeah, it's looking a little bit ragged actually. It's just getting a couple of wheels on the grass, but maybe he shouldn't be. And he's certainly pushing. But obviously, the closer he gets, the more spray he's going to be coming up against, and it just makes it more difficult. So I think he'll be considering jumping into the pits a little bit earlier than De Swart and get some time on the board. He's obviously got the pace on him.
Absolutely, and we'll see where they may come out. You're looking for there's a fairly decent gap between a few cars there. I'm looking on the track map on the right hand side, looking between P8, which is class Vesta, the number 90, and then there's a few seconds in there back to the number 25 and further back to this battle. Matas Marquez, Ronnie Jezerif, and I think that could be one of the McLarens making its way through, potentially Clyde Bainey. No, not too sure. Ronnie Jezerif definitely in the red Audi at the front there. Then there's the Ferrari of Martin van der Kraan. Then it's Matas Marquez and the Nissan of Patrick Treffers as they come in towards Paddock Hill Bend. This battle pack outside the top 10. Jezerif in 10th. It's 11th and 12th closely behind. So looking for the pit stoppers, the race leaders will be hoping to come out before this battle arrives on the scene. They'll want to get into that clean air and hope they can stay clear of any drama, because there are plenty of fights going on up and down the order, and it doesn't matter whether you're fighting for P1 or fighting for P21, the battle is just as worth winning in the races and in this community, and it's hard fair racing up and down the order. Sem Spenkelink though failing really to make an impact from P6. That gap to James Mead is yet to show signs of decreasing. If anything, it's gone out in the last couple of laps. 4.6 seconds now is our championship current second place runner. P6 on the road, 4.6 seconds back from James Mead's number 29 Aston Martin. As he crosses the line, he's managed to take half a second out of him on that lap, but inconsistency potentially not helping the number 1 McLaren close up towards the top 5 positions. And this battle pack still continuing to exchange blows. Ronnie Jezerif, Martin van der Kraan and Matas Marquez running down towards Clark. Marquez is off on the grass. He's not going to be able to stop in time and runs into the gravel at Clark Curve. Patrick Treffers nearly joins him on the beach there, but is able just to get the car stopped and keep it on the grey stuff. Another slight side-to-side contact. Another car off into the grass, but Marquez manages to continue on. Holds on to that P12 position. There's a huge slide on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend, and on the run up Hellwood Hill he spins and is now adjacent to the racing line. Drivers will need to be wary of the yellow flag in order to avoid the white McLaren. He waits for a space and rejoins onto the racing surface just in front of, I believe that's Dennis Workman's 444 Aston Martin, who is a lot further down the order outside our top 23. And in fact, Workman makes his own error there on the run out of Druids, and Marquez another spin, clips the curb on the way in to Graham Hill Bend, half spin, gathers it up, but more time lost. He's going to have to fight his way back into this race. He's now dropped down to P16. Has shown plenty of pace so far, but again, just one too many errors sees him tumbling down the order. He's now only a couple of seconds in front of Jitse Medima's Ferrari, who has already pitted in this race. There you go at the back of shot. That blue and yellow 488 is the leaders of our pit stoppers so far in this race. But with halfway elapsed. We are into this second half of the race. It's Danny de Swart who leads the way from Kieran Vidago's number 4 Ferrari. In fact, actually, Vidago looks to have made a mistake, and Nard Cox is now through to P2. So de Swart leads the way, 3 seconds to Cox, then it's 1.8 seconds back to Kieran Vidago with Clyde Bainey in 4th. So we did say, Dave, you said that Kieran Vidago looking like he was pushing, potentially just pushing a little bit too hard there.
Yeah, again, just on the exit of Graham Hill Bend there, I think he may look like he might have run a little bit wide, and the rear end's come round on him. So, pushing hard, but he's really got to be clean in these conditions.
Absolutely. Here is a replay. This looks like it is Kieran Vidago on the run down into the left hand at Graham Hill Bend, and he's lost it before the apex there. I think another driver just putting 2 wheels on that curb on the way into the corner. Fortunately, though, he's able to keep the thing facing in relatively the right direction, and he returns to the track fairly unscathed. There's another slide on the exit of Clark. That was so close to hitting the pit wall. He gathered that thing up with some strength indeed. Code Brown moment for Kieran Vidago, though, as he completes another lap. More time, though, lost, and another wiggle on the bottom of the hill on the way up towards Druids. Certainly squirrely is this number 4 Ferrari. I wonder if that's Vidago pushing, or whether he is indeed struggling with the conditions. Down the hill in towards the left hand at Graham Hill Bend, and again just understeering mid-corner, gets out onto the curb, and you can see immediately the grip decreases quite sharply as the wheels spin up on the red and white curbing, and indeed on the almost AstroTurf netting that's behind the red and white curbs. But Vidago, a couple of mistakes in a lap there has lost him plenty of time, as Nard Cox is now the closest challenger to Danny de Swart's race lead. The gap between the top two, 2.3 seconds, as another couple of drivers head to pit lane, one of those being Ronin Jezerif's Audi, the number 3, pitting from just on the outskirts of the top 10, but he's going to tumble down the order, potentially find himself towards the extremities of the top 20, as there's a number of cars making their way through, including Jitse Medema, Dimitri de Knoit as well, Zarn de Vale in P18, all seem to be passing at the number 3 car in pit lane. And if that's an indication of just how much time you lose in the stops, you could see this order shuffle quite drastically. Is that a mistake? That looks like Danny de Swart's in the wall there and heading off into the gravel at Paddock Hill Bend. That looked like potentially some sort of disconnect, because his car does not look in control. He's reversing back onto the racing line, but I don't think Danny de Swart is in control of this car. He's now parked in the middle of the track on the run in towards turn 1. Cars going left and right to avoid the CBSR Racing Mercedes, but through the spray there, it looked like he just went straight on, collected the wall on the inside, and judging by the fact the car is parked in the middle of the racing surface, looks like some sort of sim issue there for Danny de Swart Day. That's very scary. And you think he's still parked there indeed.
Yeah, possibly, or he's trying to find the map button for starting his engine, because if you hit the wall hard enough or you spin hard enough, it stalls and you have to restart your engine up. So he looks like he's still there. So when you it could be a sim issue. He doesn't look like he's able to escape out. So hopefully everyone's taking heed.
Yeah, potentially a disconnect from Danny de Swart. Here is a replay then coming on to the Brabham straight up towards the start-finish line. And look, he just veers off to the right-hand side, collects the pit exit wall, and then pinballs over to the left. And still, look, the way the car's not slowing down, you at least think the driver might have the brakes on. And owing to the camber of the gravel trap and the corner there, the Mercedes just finds itself wandering back into the racing line. Drivers... there was a close blow there for, I believe, Jitse Medema. Dave Jr. skirts to the outside and potentially had to run on through the gravel. But after all of that, it's going to be Nard Cox who now takes up the baton as our race leader. We've seen 2 big errors from the race leaders so far. Can Nard Cox break the trend and lap cleanly and hold on to the lead? Kieran Vidago then promoted to 2nd place. Clyde Bainey now into the podium positions in 3rd. Just under 25 minutes to go. James Mead up to P4 with the incident for our race leader Danny de Swart, who I'm sure will be absolutely cursing whatever has caused him to exit the race. Sem Spenkeling up to P5, and crucially with that another handful of points in his attempt to close the gap to Rhys Spence Rob at the top of the championship table. Then it's Mike Abramhoser up to P6 from P10 on the grid. Klaas Vester in 7th place. He's hovered around this point, this position throughout the opening 35 minutes so far. Then it's Van der Martin P8, a very strong showing from him, ahead of Martin van der Kraan and Benjamin Simmers. Then it's Chris Hill, one of our drivers in the race radio, but he's in the thick of the action at the moment, up in P11 with Tim Krul behind in the number 19 Lamborghini. Then it's Nelson Abramhoser top in 13th. Those top 13 positions still yet to make their mandatory pit stop, so the order is certainly set to shuffle, and shuffle with quite some dramatic consequences in this remaining 23.5 minutes. Then it's Yitzhak Medina in P14, currently leading our pit stoppers in the number 36 Ferrari. Matas Marquez rounds out your top 15 after what's been an incident-filled first half of the race for the number 20 McLaren driver. Then it's Dimitri de Knoit, Sander Vale, Simon Pike in P18, slowly continuing his climb up the order after a very dramatic opening couple of laps here at Brands Hatch. Then it's Damien de Keyser and Ronin Jezerif, 19th and 20th. Johan Planas, Dave Jr., Dennis Workman, Tim Niebauer, Evan Atafas and Patrick Treffers completing your top 26 positions as Matas Marquez, curse of the commentator, another mistake here, gets the car going. He skips across the grass on the inside of the Sheen curve to safely return to the racetrack, but another mistake sees this McLaren tumbling down the order. I think that was the Bentley of de Knoit getting through as well, so we'll have to see where he returns to the order. But now, Dave, 22.5 minutes to go, well within pit stop windows being open, well within being able to get to the end, and any sorts of strategy calls like that. With the race we're seeing, it's going to be about making sure that the mistakes are the things you drop off. And in the pit lane, though, very easy to make one of those mistakes. You don't want to be picking up a stop-go penalty.
No, it's very easy now. As the limits of speeding in the pit lane have been tightened up since the last update, and very easy to get those penalties. But yeah, it's, I bet Kieran's thanking his lucky stars that there was a disconnect there after his mistake. He's obviously now up into P2, but looks like he's dropped back a bit off Niall Cox about a second this lap, so it looks like he might have had another issue again on this lap. So it's going to be interesting in the last 20 odd minutes to see who can basically keep it clean.
Who can weather the storm, and it's certainly a very wet Brands Hatch still, as Kieran Vidago flashing the lights at Evan Atafas. He wants to get past the pink and black Nissan GTR as they head through Surtees, because in his rear mirror now is the orange and purple McLaren of Clyde Bainey, race winner from Donington Park, is closed up on the top two positions. He's now only 5/10 back. In fact, they are pretty much nose to tail as they head out through the GP loop. Niall Cox will be looking at his relative, hoping that these two start fighting, and that 3.3 second advantage he has in the race lead continues to extend as they head up the hill towards the Sheen curve and through the right-hander. Clyde Bainey is certainly closing on Kieran Vidago, who's made a few mistakes in this middle part of the race. As Dimitri de Knoit sends one up the inside of Yitzhak Medina into Druids. A bit of paint exchanged at the top of the hill through the right-handed hairpin, but the Bentley has made the move and looks to have gathered up P14, which I actually think has become P13, because there's Nelson Abramhoser off in the grass there on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. So de Knoit continues to lead our pit stoppers, P13 at the moment. Positions coming his way as Clyde Bainey makes a mistake through Paddock Hill Bend, so a little slip slide and runs wide all over the curb on the exit. It's going to drop him off the rear wing of Kieran Vidago, and that pressure has been released on the number 4 Ferrari driver, who now needs to settle back into a rhythm and iron out those errors that are seeing him lose time to the race leader and lose track position once these pit strategies start to play out. All of this, though, is bringing Sem Spenkeling back into things. P5 is now 2.3 seconds off James Mead, who in turn is 6/10 away from Clyde Bainey. So the order really is starting to close up inside the top 5. Here's Ronnie Jesrief, one of our pit stoppers in the red number 3 Audi. He's battling away with Johan Planas as they head up through Surtees and onto the back stretch. The Audi skipping across the curb. It cost him some momentum on the run down through Pilgrim's Drop and towards Hawthorns as Tim Kroll is fighting away with Chris Hill in front of him. These two yet to pit in P11 and P12. Chris has gained a very healthy number of positions so far this race, but plenty of drivers have pitted, so he's in this awkward middle part of the race where he's still to stop, but he's in a very strong position on the track and finds potentially quicker cars catching him. But as he negotiates round Surtees, cost himself some time there with a slight exit error, and that allows Tim Kroll to steam on through in the number 19 Lamborghini on the run down towards Hawthorns, as it looks like there's a spinner, and that's Simon Pike, the number 13 Aston Martin, the Dynamic Motorsports driver, on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend, has spun to the inside and finds himself in the field there on the inside. There's so much grass, and in these conditions it will be extra slippy and extra difficult to get the car facing the right way and back onto the racetrack. He returns once again to the grey stuff as Simon Pike, and it's been a difficult race for all these drivers out there so far, but I think it's been particularly tricky for Simon, who's had a couple of errors knock him down the order and stop him from maybe getting inside the top 15 at the checkered flag. Here's Clyde Bainey though, definitely closing in on Kieran Fadago, but look Dave, that's the positions 2, 3, 4 and 5 almost all together in one camera shot. Things seem to be closing up at the front. With 17 and a half minutes to go, it's starting to hot up here.
It is, yeah, and I've just been looking at the pit stop times, and there's a big range of what people are doing and how much fuel they're taking in terms of how much time they're stopped, from 5 seconds all the way up to sort of 36 seconds. So you can see, how strategy can change the way that people drive the race, and how much fuel they have on board, and how much time they can save in the pit stops just by taking less fuel.
Absolutely, look how close they all are. Vidago, Barney, James Mead and then Sem Spenkeling separated by a little over 2.5 seconds as they start what is lap 28. Just under 17 minutes to go. We've seen the strategy in this race, or in this season really, winning strategy more often than not seems to be going as long as you can into the race and hope the others make the mistakes and cost themselves time, execute a quick clean final stop in the last couple of laps and emerge onto the track in the race lead. We certainly saw Clyde Bainey do that at Donington Park, albeit he had some help from Reece Spence-Robb to eventually take the race lead on the final lap. But we've seen Spence-Robb himself go as late as he possibly can, and Sem Spenkeling last time at Bathurst gave the strategy a whirl, and it certainly proved dividends for him as he won the race. So drivers will continue to extend this stint as long as they can. Now the problem is though, those clean air windows that you potentially would have hoped to have dropped into have now gone missing as Barney runs wide on the exit Sheen curve. That costs him momentum, and James Mead is now tucked under the rear wing of the number 85 Odyssey Racing McLaren. That's Damien De Keyser on the left hand side, the Lexus getting out of the way on the run down into Clark Curve. Mead sees the door open and he had to follow Clyde Bainey through there on the run through the final corner of the lap, because if he had found the Lexus in between him, that would have cost him time but thrown him into the clutches of Sem Spenkeling's number 1 McLaren, who's in the back of shot there. They come into Paddock Hill Bend, still nose to tail. Clyde Bainey though has rather lost touch with Kieran Fadago because his hands are full with this Aston Martin as Barney runs wide through Druids, and James Mead sees the door open and sends the car up the inside. On the run down the hill, Barney has the momentum into Graham Hill Bend, so is able to hold on to this final podium spot for now. But Mead is certainly attempting a move and is certainly looking for a way past. They run into Surtees. I nearly thought James Mead was going to run square into the back of the McLaren there, into the left-hander, but he managed to get the car stopped. Just under 15 minutes to go. A quarter of this race is still left in offering this evening. Plenty of action still to take place as Mead is now in the thick of the spray from Clyde Bainey's McLaren. Sem Spenkeling looks to have cleared the Lexus as well, so these three drivers will be together in no time at all, I'm sure of it. As Nard Cox continues to lead the way in the number 35 from Kieran Vidago. And then it is Clyde Bainey, James Mead and Sem Spenklink, your top 5 positions. Bolton Lad and Scouse are asking in the YouTube chat, did Sem bin it? Yes, Sem Spenklink making a mistake at the Sheen curve in the race lead inside the first 20 minutes. Seeing him losing the race lead and dropping down the order. He's fought his way back in from P6 with some excellent pace. Certainly dodged a few more stopped cars as well, as there's an Aston Martin. Dennis Workman, I think, is off the road on the run up the hill from Paddock Hill Bend. There you go, on the left hand side of your screen, the grey and green Vantage facing the wrong way, and as he tries to rejoin, he loops the car. Damien De Keyser has to avoid the Mode 11 racing machine. There's a Gas 16 B11 saying that lucky to make it out of the puddles. I think that's reference to Simon Pike, who was off in the grass at Paddock Hill Bend. And yeah, you do find it difficult to get back onto the track if you're off in the grass and gravel, particularly when it's been raining this hard for this long. Now, Dave, I'm going to put you in the driver's seat for this situation. You're Sem Spenklink. You've caught up to Clyde Bainey and James Mead. Do you want to get stuck in, or do you pit now and maybe try and utilise that pace for an undercut?
I'd probably give it a lap, and if it looks like I'm not going to get past, then like he's just run wide there. So
run wide, yes, into Westfield. Understeers off into the gravel. Time cost. So Dave, what's the plan now?
Probably just try and catch back up again, because now you got the space again, so you're not in the spray. As soon as you get held up, it's best to get in and roll the dice, and hopefully you'll get out in some free air.
Make it sound so simple, Dave. Catch back up again.
Yeah, we've done so well.
Yeah, into the final corner then. Sem Spenklink, he's got over half a second, if not more so, to try and close back up on James Mead. Mistake into Westfield, actually it's 2.1 seconds to the number 29 Aston Martin. 12 and a quarter minutes to go, so the clock is certainly ticking down. Dennis Workman heads into pit lane with a very sad looking Aston Martin, certainly the symptom of the incident at Paddock Hill Bend. There is our race leader, Nard Cox, number 35, looking very strong out in front, and so far yet to make a mistake that's cost him the race lead. He is a race winner so far this season, winning at the opening round at Laguna Seca, going from pole to victory, but he was chased hard by Dave Jr. Then pole at Paul Ricard, but he couldn't convert that to a win, and then pole again at Donington Park, couldn't convert that to a win either. And now this evening he started from P4 and currently finds himself leading the way. Can he continue, and can he hold on to it to claim a second win this season and put the Dark Sky Racing drivers of Spenklink and Cox as the only 2 drivers to win 2 races so far this season? Clyde Bainey, though, in P3rd, certainly could spring a surprise in this race, but if he's going to do that, he needs to minimise the errors, and he needs to make sure that he doesn't come under pressure from Kieran Vidago up ahead. I was about to say James Mead behind is closing in as well. So, Dave, it's very easy to say, run your own race, etc. But, just a car being within 2 seconds, that bit of pressure just makes things a little bit more difficult.
It does. It makes you drive in a different way as well. You've got to control your emotions and really sort of drive your own race, which is easier said than done, especially if you're chasing somebody down, and even seeing maybe 0.3 of a lap come down one lap, your heart goes, and you start to think, I might have got this guy in maybe 2 or 3 laps, but then you make a silly mistake and you're back to a second back.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like there's been a coming together here. Mike Abrenhoser and Klaas Vester off in the gravel on either side of Paddock Hill Bend. The McLaren and the Ferrari potentially coming to blows in turn 1 as Tim Krul makes a pass on Martin van der Kraan and then dives for pit lane. So the number 19 Lamborghini pits from P9. Let's see where he emerges after his mandatory pit stop. The top 10 still yet to pit. Chris Hill is the last of those top 10 bulk, and then it's Kroll and Abrenhoser in 13th and 14th who are yet to stop, but I get the feeling that several that we might see. Sorry, some other pit stoppers following that contact at turn 1 between Vesta and Mike Abrenhoser. Might opt to pit this lap and get it out of the way. Here's the replay of the incident. Abrenhoser coming in actually completely on his own, loses it on the entry to Paddock Hill Bend, slides off into the gravel, and as he rejoins, there's just a clatter from the Ferrari that spins both of them round. It's really difficult, Dave. You know, Klaas Vesta in that situation, he's dancing on a knife edge in the wet, as it is, but you don't get the reaction times or the ability to adjust your line on the exit of a corner like Paddock Hill. Then factor in the conditions. It's so difficult to avoid a car like that.
Yeah, it is, and I guess the McLaren could have been a little bit better on rejoining the track, maybe a little bit further up the hill. But it's a racing incident at the end of the day. The guy came around the turn 1, and you got nowhere to go. You naturally drift out wide anyway.
Looks like we've got to stop the car. Nick van der Maat there off in the grass at Graham Hill Bend. We did briefly see Chris Hill making a pass, I believe, for position on Martin van der Kraan as the number 7 Dynamic Motorsports Aston Martin is up inside the top 10. Bear in mind, he's still to make his pit stop, but this has been a really clean race so far from Chris. He certainly looks to have dragged some performance out of this car across the 52 minutes so far. 7 minutes and 51 seconds to go. He's within sight of a very strong finish, but he's yet to make that pit stop. We will see him drop down the order. Certainly good experience for Chris up inside this top 10, inside very strong position this close to the end of the race. He's about 7 seconds off Benjamin Simmers in P8, so he's not too far out of touch with the next position. If Simmers makes a mistake in pit lane, we could see Chris Hill gain that spot as well, but Simmers in turn is 25 seconds off the back of Mike Abrenhoser's number 21 McLaren. So there is your gap, the top 7 all within touching distance of each other, and then it's a gap back to Simmers in P8. Klaas Vesta heads to pit lane as expected, seeing the damage following the incident at Paddock Hill Bend with Mike Abrenhoser's number 21 McLaren. Sam Spenkling though in P5, still pushing on 2.5 seconds off the back of James Mead. So it looks like that he had the pace to start closing in, and potentially another error has just cost him time as Klaas Vesta rejoins from pit lane. Aero Ali joining the YouTube chat. Joined and saw a rainy track and now I feel sick. Well, it's certainly been a roller coaster ride that might make you feel queasy. It certainly could be a seasickness feeling with the amount of water out there on track this evening. Nard Cox continues past pit lane and continues on another lap, 6.25 minutes to go. Get the feeling he's got to go as late as he can into the race in order to make or try and hold on to this race lead. Spenkling into pit lane, so the driver in P5, pole position man and once race leader, is now in pit road making his mandatory stop with just under 6 minutes to go. Crucial to see where he emerges on track. I'm hoping for a few more cars to get past and come out onto the racing surface once again with some clean air. As he's now rolling down pit lane and towards the pit exit line, he releases the pit limiter and rejoins just in front of the fellow McLaren. That's Mike Abrenhoser. That was vital that he gained and held on to that spot there. He's only dropped down, well, in fact I believe he's remained in P5 as he continues on round Druids. So the other drivers will be hoping to match that stop and hold on to their positions. That was crucial for Spenkling not to come out behind Abrenhoser there, Dave. Otherwise he would have had to have made a pass, when reality now he needs to be putting in quali laps to the end.
Yeah, he's done well there. He was only stationary for 6 seconds, so splash and dash, no tyres. Looked like he's one of the quickest in the pit lane as well, 27 seconds. So he's done well there. So hopefully it's going to allow him to catch up into P4 when they come into the pits. But 27 seconds in the pit lane is James Mead's time to beat, really.
Absolutely, he needs to be quick out, and he needs to make sure eradicates any sort of room for error on the way in. Here is James Mead, who comes down pit lane. The pink and black Odyssey Racing Aston Martin comes to a stop in his pit box. Looking on the track map on the right hand side, the number 1 is Sem Spenkling. He's just come out of Stirling, heading towards the final corner at Clark Curve as the Aston Martin has got rolling. Trundling down pit lane, it feels so terribly slow, but it looks like Spenkling's going to get the jump as he comes across the start-finish line there. Mead is yet to get back on full throttle, and as he does so, Spenkling is well clear of the Aston Martin. So Sem Spenkling into a net P4. Still pit stops to be taken as Nelson Appenhoser is handed a stop-go 30. I believe that will be for an error in pit lane. Mike Appenhoser stops from P6 as well, but Spenkling has definitely made up a position there with James Mead slower in pit lane. And Dave, that's crucial, and so late in the race there's no opportunity really to gain that position back.
No, not at all. And 4 seconds extra in the pit lane there for Mead, so that cost him dearly.
Absolutely. Seeing confirmation in the YouTube chat from Thomason29, the number 25 car that was stopped in the grass for quite a long time. It was Nick van der Mart saying his wheel broke and lost connection and his game froze. So unfortunately, it's rather the luck of the racing gods there stopping Nick from finishing the race this evening, which is a shame. We do like to get all of our drivers to the checkered flag. As now Kieran Vidago, the next driver to make a stop. He comes down pit lane, yet to stop in his box, which is quite a long way along pit road, but Spenkling is even closer, I believe, than he was to James Mead. We'll have to see how this one plays out. Spenkling around the final corner. Kieran Vidago gets rolling, and he hasn't got too far to go before he can release the pit limiter. I think Nard Cox has potentially spun on the exit of Graham Hill Bend, which throws another curveball into this race. Vidago returns to the racetrack, and he is, I believe, just in front of Sem Spenkling, because Nard Cox has lost whole heaps of time. Definitely look at the damage to the front end of the Dark Sky Racing McLaren. There's been contact between the race leader and someone else, and within sight of the checkered flag, and with his pit stop still to be made, the race has definitely slipped out of Nard Cox's grasp. Clyde Bainey takes up the baton then as race leader. Kieran Vidago looks to have held on to P3, which could be the race lead once the pit stops have played out. So the battle between Vidago and Spenkling will now become the fight for the race lead. He's got a couple of seconds over the bright blue McLaren. Here is the instant then. Down the hill, Cox makes a spin. He clatters the curb on the inside of Graham Hill Bend, and he's facing the wrong way. But that doesn't tell us how he gets the damage as he tries to spin the car back around, and he clatters the 236. I believe that's Benjamin Simmer's Ferrari. And it goes from bad to worse for Cox. And Dave, just a moment of desperation there as he comes down pit lane.
Yeah, and if he was in the real world, he'd be in a world of pain there, wouldn't he? Doing that, that's not ideal, but he was desperate there to get back running. He's going to have a lot of damage, and he's going to put him down way down the order, and potentially in front of the stewards as well.
As here we go, Clyde Bainey, Nard Cox in pit lane. Kieran Vidago, with less than a minute on the clock, picks up the race lead, and he will know that. He will know he's in P1. This could be the final lap of the race as well as he heads up in towards Druids. He's got a 2-second gap, if not less than that, over Sem Spenkling as they come down the hill and in towards Graham Hill Bend. He needs to survive the corner which has caught out so many this evening. He does just that, stays well clear of the curbs on the inside and the outside to avoid any chance of them biting back, as there's a spun Ferrari on the inside. That's the 236, which I think is Benjamin Simmers. Yes, it is, facing the wrong way at 30. Kieran Vidago now down towards Pilgrim's Drop and Hawthorne's for what looks like it's going to be the final time of asking. In towards the right-hander, Sem Spenkling 2 seconds back. He's going to need a mistake from our race leader, the number 4 Ferrari, in this final lap of the race if he's to take a surprise victory. As down the hill, through the Dingle Dell for the final time and up towards the Sheen curve. Kieran just needs to make it home. He's got 2 more corners as the car skates slightly wide towards the left-hand side and in towards the grass, but he keeps it facing the right direction, keeps well off the curb on the Exeter Sterlings He's not taking any risks as he comes under the bridge into clearways, into the final corner at Clark Curve. Cool as you like, steady as you like around the final turn. Flat to the line. Kieran Vidago is going to collect the checkered flag to win at Brands Hatch in the Simsport Racing International GT3 Championship, the penultimate round of the season. But he's followed home closely by Sem Spenkling, who recovers to P2, and Clyde Bainey, who holds on to third place to take another podium finish. Then it's James Mead in P4 ahead of Nard Cox, who will be cursing inside that McLaren cockpit. He was so close to a race victory, but a mistake on the penultimate lap sees him lose the lead and down to P5. Then it'll be Klaas Vester in P6, crossing the line in the number 90 Ferrari. And this has been a very strong drive indeed from Klaas, who's certainly made a couple of mistakes in this race. Matches his best finish of P6 from the Zandvoort event, which was also in the wet. So there's a trend coming there from the driver for the number 90 Ferrari. Dimitri de Knoit crosses the line in P7. A very strong finish indeed from the Bentley driver ahead of Jitse Medema. And this is Zander Vale, a driver who we saw off in the gravel during this session, but he's back up to P9 with Mike Abrenhoser crossing the line in P10. Could have been a stronger finish, but unfortunately an incident in the closing few minutes saw that McLaren drop down the order. Then it's Tim Krul in P11 with Chris Hill in P12, and I'm sure he'll be absolutely cheering inside the cockpit. That's his best result of the season by far, and I'm sure he'll be happy that we didn't dive in and chat to him during the race. Then behind Chris, it's Damien de Keyser in P13 ahead of Simon Pike, who recovered to P14. A fantastic recovery drive from the Dynamic Motorsports driver who had an off on the opening lap. Joan Planas P15 ahead of Ronald Jeserif, Dave Jr., Benjamin Simmers and Martin van der Kram and Nelson Abrenhoser. Your top 20 finishes this evening. Dave, what a race we had, and once again it proved that making the least amount of mistakes was crucial to your race win. Nard Cox losing that victory in the final two laps, but Kieran Vidago, he had to bounce back, didn't he? A couple of errors throughout that race, but I'm sure he'll be happy with that one.
Yeah, I think it just shows, keep your head, and even if you make a mistake, count your lucky stars that you didn't hit a wall and get back on it. But let's have rain on every race, shall we?
Absolutely. Well, before we get some other of our finishers into the commentary booth to hear about their race, we're going to speak to our two race radio drivers. We'll go to Chris Hill first. Chris, P12, you must be smiling.
Speechless. That was probably the most consistent race I've ever driven. Not with consistent lap times, but I made very few mistakes, and that was very key to this. This was just Manchester normal weather, so it's standard for me and Simon, really. How did Simon do?
Simon up to P14 right at the end, so two cars inside the top 15. But Chris, we saw mistakes up and down the order costing people time. Were you wary of that during the race, and just keep it on the grey stuff, as you trundling around for the 60 minutes?
Absolutely, that's the only way to do it. Obviously, if you're gifted and you're fast like Kieran and Sem and others that fast drivers that are readily available, they keep it on the black stuff and are fast at the same time. Whereas I just wanted to, like I said before, try and be consistent, stay out of trouble, avoid any cars. Incidentally, there was a car off on the first lap and slammed straight into the wall. There's the driver, all right.
There's been a few crashes. Well, one of those, unfortunately, on the first lap was your teammate Simon Pike. Simon, back up to P14. Very strong race from you. We spoke to you just in the early part of the race following the incident, and you had you had to get your head down. It certainly seems like that paid off.
Yeah, I got punted off at the start. I don't know who it was, but it happens. So I decided to get my pit stop out of the way, and then coming out of the pits, I was behind. I don't know. It was a Bentley, I think. And then I just pushed too far and spun it. Had another spin going through turn one, just on the exit. A few run wides, bit scruffy really. I had a strong spell of consistency that got me up past some people in the pits. Then had a good battle with Juan Planas in the Ferrari at the end. Just he made a mistake and I managed to capitalise on that and get 14th. Well, I passed on 14th. I think I was 15th when I passed him. But somebody must have had a worse race than me. So it was interesting. It was good fun though.
Well, congratulations to the pair of you, both of you picking up best finishes here at Brands Hatch. So it looks like it's a favourite circuit then for the Dynamic Motorsports crew. Well, let's bring in our race winner, Kieran Vidago. Kieran, it didn't look easy out there, but you must be smiling, if not a little bit damp, following that race at Brands Hatch. Congratulations, race victory.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, very damp. It was a really tough, hard work. Just had to keep it in a straight line, I think. That was the main thing.
A few slips and slides, though, on your way to this race victory. And, you know, there were points where it looked like you had the pace and then potentially a mistake just knocked you back. How was it dealing with these conditions? Because Brands Hatch is a challenge in its own right, let alone when it's pretty much monsoon conditions.
Yeah, it was really difficult. As soon as you got within a second of a car in front, you could see nothing anymore. So you were just hoping at going off how high your engine was revving, and then you'd brake at that point. And sometimes you go too far. Yeah, I had that little slide into T3 that let Nard by, which eventually was the lead. But yeah, it was just difficult. It was a lot of fun though.
Absolutely. Well, you know, you've had some strong races in terms of qualifying this season, and some races that have got away from you. I'm thinking of, you looked quick at Laguna Seca. To be honest, you've looked quick at every round, pole position at Zandvoort as well. Unfortunately, though, you know, those races haven't gone your way. It must feel good to have some of the luck come back your direction this evening.
Yeah, no, it feels really good. Zandvoort was a real kick in the stomach, actually.
Absolutely, I can only imagine. But race victory to your name, going into the final round at Monza. Are you just going to hang everything out and see where you finish? Obviously, you're not quite in with a shout at the championship, but points are worth prizes, aren't they?
Yeah, just kind of a good race at Monza. It's a fun track for me, so should be good.
Brilliant stuff. Well, congratulations, Kieran. Look forward to seeing you next time out.
Cheers, Tim.
And we'll go to our second place finisher, Sem Spenkelink. Sem, a point in that race. It looked like you were running away with things. Then there was the mistake, and then it looked like you had to work cut out to get back in to the race. Do you think you would finish P2?
Yeah, the end result is of course a bit lucky given the circumstances. I tried to follow James and Clyde to it got close, very close together, but when you have the spray of two cars, there was just no coming really close, and I started making some mistakes just because I couldn't see the corners. The weather was so treacherous. So eventually decided, okay, my only chance is if I try the undercut and just make a good pit stop. And my pit entry was spot on, and I managed to luckily get in front of just by a few seconds. And that at least gave me a good end result. Regarding the other point, of course, pace was great here. Actually felt really comfortable in the rain. Had a nice gap towards Danny, but then I started to, lose focus a little bit, dozed off, and then turned into early ones at Sheen's, and clipped the curb. Car jumped a little bit, went off into the grass on the left side, and then it was simply no holding it in the slippery grass.
Yeah, tricky conditions, absolutely this evening, but it's less so a race against the other cars sometimes, isn't it? And more a race against the conditions. You know, how was managing the focus? Like you say, you dozed off, you say, a little bit during the race, and it's sometimes quite difficult to keep 100% focus when half the time you can't see where you're going.
Yeah, definitely. Like the conditions were what really made this race tricky. I mean, Brands Hatch is already quite a challenging circuit, especially to overtake, and in the rain it wasn't getting any better. So it was really tricky. You had to keep focused like for the full hour, 100%. It was definitely a sweaty one, but glad to come home with P2.
One more round to go then in this GT3 championship. With Reese not racing this evening, we see the lead change and you take up the baton at the top of the point standings with potentially a 20-point lead. Does that change your approach to the final race?
Yeah, I can say I just hope that Reese will be there for the final race and to make it a nice championship ending. I will definitely just try my hardest to win again at Monza, but definitely hope that Reese will be there. We both missed one race now, and I think there's one result that's being crossed off by the end, your worst one. So, yeah, let's see how it goes. I will give it my all.
We look forward to seeing that championship battle. Thanks, Sam, for joining us post-racing. Congratulations on your P2.
Thank you, Tim, and thanks for the great commentary.
Thanks, Sam. No problem. We'll go over to our third place finisher, Clyde Bainey. Clyde, a tricky race for you, not just the conditions, but it looked like you had good pace out there this evening. Not quite matching your race win at Donington Park, but you must be happy to be back on the podium.
Yeah, to be fair, it was an okay result, considering I started from P9. I mean, made a mistake at the start, lost 2 free positions, so in the end to come back from P12 to P3, it's an alright race. I mean, I think I made a couple too many mistakes, but I think everyone can say that who finished in the top 10 because the conditions were quite tough. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately in the end I managed to, not really get my pit entry right, and I hit a couple of walls, but don't think that cost too much time. Then I missed my pit box, otherwise, maybe P2 or even a win would have been in there. But in the end, I can't really complain too much about P3. I mean, James had the same issue and he finished P4, so, I mean, these things can happen.
Absolutely, like you say, it's a matter of who makes the least mistakes is often the driver that comes up on top. But the last race we had in wet conditions at Zandvoort was a tricky race with the conditions changing. Of course, it dried up towards the middle, but that was a race where you went backwards in the rain. This time you've gone forwards in the rain. Do you think anything's changed between then and now?
Not having VR issues helped. I mean, in the Zandvoort race, I actually had a VR notification ahead of me for like 2 laps straight, and I pretty much couldn't see the track. So the spray today was actually nothing compared to that. So I guess that helped me in terms of practice. And then getting taken out, obviously, in that race, I mean, being which can happen in the rain. Today, not getting taken out, I feel like that was pretty much the main reason why today I finished on the podium and last time I didn't.
Well, congratulations, P3. Look forward to seeing you next time out of Monza. Cheers, Clyde.
Cheers.
So, Dave, we've heard from the drivers. They all seem to be happy just to have made it to the checkered flag.
Yes, it goes to show how heavy and real the concentration that they've had to have throughout this race for the 60 minutes and through qualifying as well. Because obviously, don't forget that that's full out beans and pushing as hard as you can. But yeah, it's well done to everyone. It's always good racing when we have some wet running, but hopefully people start to practice in the rain, because it does show some little bits of things that might need to be improved on some of the driving standards. But it's always good racing in the rain.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dave, for joining me in the commentary box once again. Thank you to Chris Hill and Simon Pike for being our race radio drivers, the 2 Dynamic Motorsports teammates, picking up their best finishes of the season so far. And thank you as well to Tom Vandermeer for bringing us the broadcast coverage. It's been exciting watching this Brands Hatch race unfold before our very eyes. But it was Kieran Vidago who weathered the storm and managed to ride the waves to his first victory of the season. But the championship fight is where the battle really is. Heading into the final round at Monza, Sem Spenkelink and Reece Spence-Robb will be going toe-to-toe, head-to-head for this GT3 championship here at Simsport Racing International. Join us in 2 weeks' time for that final round of the season, and join us in a week's time for the final race of the GT4 championship at Monza. But until then, stay safe and good night.